Solsaate. Yeah.
Solsaate. Okay. Oh yeah, I'll give it a go. I'll try and do it properly.
It's like a dialect word in Swedish, so no one here knows what it means either. So we can say whatever we want, basically.
Daniel from Solsaate, which I'm probably saying wrong. Welcome to Nightbreed. How's it going?
Thank you. Well, it's good. Thank you. I like that. It's kind of cool that we get to think about, like, when someone asks how it's going nowadays, we now get to think one more time, because everything hasn't been going great all the time this few years, you know. And I think that's sort of in a way a good thing that we now have to think about that. But yeah, it's good actually. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well, mate. Thank you. Yeah. So how did the band first begin? How did this all kick off?
Well, that's actually a really long story. So I guess you have to start in the band I used to play in, or well, which I actually still play in, but that's not been active for like 20 years, which is called Otyg. It's the folk metal band started in the late 90s and did a couple of records in the early 2000s. Well, then it went on ice and we didn't play much, but already then I had this idea of working with folk music and metal in different ways. So I after that band I went on and started to play folk music, basically. I haven't been doing metal for 20 years since then basically. So I've been playing in acoustic music in different folk bands and that sort of traditional root stuff and world music and stuff like that. But I always had this idea that sometime I want to do this sort of mix between folk music and metal again, and sort of do it with like really good musicians, do it with people who really know how to play like folk stuff, but also do it like really brutal and to take it all the way as I thought about it. And I guess it's partly because of the pandemic thing. Suddenly we got lots of time to do stuff, and I, well, actually even before then I got in contact with Erik Larsson, who plays with this band called Apocalypse Orchestra, who has the same background as me. He's into metal and folk stuff, and also plays acoustic instruments. And we started talking about, so we should do something, right? And we've sort of been doing it for 5 years, I guess. We've been working on these songs. I had done some of it already before, but we started collaborating then. And then I guess this last year we said, okay, so now it has to happen. Now we have the time and we have the contacts, and we started pulling people to us and doing the different recordings and everything. So finally we started now getting a sort of releasing some of the music. And it's really fun and amazing to finally get to do that, I think.
Cool. So I'm talking about, gathering different musicians. I imagine, finding someone that plays the bagpipes or something, that's not the most, it's not like finding a guitarist, do you know what I mean? Like, where do you look to find those kind of musicians to play in this sort of specific metal folk project?
Yeah, so as I said, both me and Erik has been in the folk music world for like forever, basically. So we know lots of people in this sort of who plays this kind of music. So the bagpiper Micke, he plays in this other band called Apocalypse Orchestra. They play sort of medieval doom kind of music. They're mixing doom metal and medieval stuff. So he's a great piper, and he also plays the hurdy-gurdy in that band. And I've been working with Maria, who plays the fiddle, or it's called viola d'amore. It's like a 5-string fiddle with this. Yeah, it's an amazing instrument. I've been working with her in different projects for a long time. Also, she's an amazing fiddler who lives in the same town as me, Falun, and the thing that I find I'm so happy about is that we also get to work with my former, or still my idol, and now my friend and co-worker, Totte Mattsson, who was in like the biggest and coolest world music band during the 90s called Hedningarna. I don't know if you know this world at all.
No,
They were like, there was like a small time in the 90s when it was cool to listen to folk music, like for a normal teenager, and that's basically because of this band Hedningarna. And now I work with Totte, who's the lutenist and hurdy-gurdy player of that band, and he's like, what is he, 65 or something now, and he's like still doing new stuff, and he loves to figure out new ideas, and he's involved in this band. He does really cool, innovative things. He has a motorized hurdy-gurdy. You know a hurdy-gurdy, what it is?
I mean, I've seen the image, but what exactly is that? What's the instrument?
So a hurdy-gurdy is a medieval instrument that you play. You know, it has keys like on a keyboard, but and it has strings like on a fiddle, but you don't have a bow, but you have a wheel that you sort of turn like this. So you turn the wheel, and the wheel is on the strings, and then you play it like this. So what he did is that he put a motor in it. So he just presses a pedal, and he starts doing this sounds, and he can play it like this, and then he can do other things with his other hand. So it's an innovative guy, and he loves to do sort of soundscapes and these sort of weird sounds, and we're happy to have that in this band too.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. We touched on it briefly before, but where does the name of the band originate?
So Solsaate is so I'm very much into folk music, but I'm not so much into the idea of sort of so some people play folk music, thinks of it as sort of the national music of a country or something like that. So for me, it's much more about the local music, the local stories, the local people. And I sort of wanted a name to reflect that somehow. So Solsaate is a word in a small vernacular dialect from the north of Sweden, a small village close where I lived up, where I grew up, called Norsjö. And sort of Solsaate, it means basically sundown or sunset or something like that in this sort of particular dialect. And we just thought it sounded kind of cool, and I like the idea of so in Swedish, Sate would sound like devil or something like that, but it's actually a kind of nice picture of a sunset. So I sort of like that duality of it.
Yeah, cool. Metal, you know, in the scheme of things, is a relatively new genre. But then for some reason, folk music and metal really go like a traditional thing. They go together really well, and like you don't really hear, you know, traditional folk music with trap music or something, some other new genre. Why do you think metal sort of melds well with folk?
Oh, I don't really know. I know that I started listening to folk music probably because of like Iron Maiden's sort of harmonics on the electric guitars, which sort of has the same kind of style as traditional fiddling in some ways. And I remember thinking about when I started to play folk music that it's so much about the sort of melody line, which was similar to how I thought about, I guess, some like death metal tremolo picking and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, it has the same. I mean, the songs have the same stories as metal songs. It's about death and it's about all that kind of stuff. So it's really easy to find these sort of dark stories in that genre, in both genres, right? But then again, I mean, they do really cool sort of fusions between like electronic music and folk music, and I don't know about trap. I don't really know what trap is, to be honest. I never really got that. Yeah, but it's the hip hop thing. Yeah, but there's all kinds of cool fusions if you look for it. But yeah, I mean, the folk metal genre has really taken off, and it's like a really cool thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So sorry, I don't really know.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Are there any bands or albums that all the band members really collectively enjoy?
Oh man, I actually couldn't say. I guess if you should talk about, I would say that that's probably Hedningarna, the band of one of the members, because they're so extremely influential, both on folk music, but also I think on the folk metal genre. I know when we started playing with Otyg in the late 90s, we played covers from that album and stuff like that. And the other guys in that band wasn't at all into like folk music normally, but they would. We sort of met around that album. Yeah, so I mean, check out like the second album of Hedningarna called Kaxi. That's really, and also the third one called Trä. That's really cool music. And I think they're re-releasing some of those again now because they're so like influential.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I would say that would be like a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, great. What's the metal scene in Sweden like, or where you're at? Like, what's it like? Is there before COVID, I guess, were there other sort of folk metal shows and black metal, that kind of stuff going on?
Yeah, of course. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I haven't been that much involved in the metal scene, as I said, for like 20 years. I go to shows now and then when I have the chance, and and listen to stuff. We have like in the town I live in called Falun, we have probably one of the biggest band in Sweden. Sabaton is from here, and they have this huge festival, of course, called Sabaton Open Air, where they take in bands which are, I guess they have some folk metal bands now and then on that festival, so that's a chance to see it. But I'm sort of, I would say that I'm not involved in a scene in that kind of way that I sort of and we don't have like weekly concerts where I live. But I mean, I go to the neighboring towns to gigs when I can and stuff like that. I'm going to see in a few months. There's a gig, hopefully, if we get to, depending on the pandemic gods, gig with one of my big bands called At the Gates, which I'm a huge fan of and been since I grew up. So I'm looking forward to see them again. It was quite a while ago. Yeah.
Before COVID and everything, like, were you guys able to plan any shows, before everything sort of shut down?
No, I mean, this is a band that is so new. We just released, a couple of songs so far, and we haven't. I mean, it's really weird. I think I'm the only one who have met all the persons in this band. We have never met in real life together, all of us. But then again, we are like 11 people in it, so, well, we're 9, but we will have to be 11 when we play live. So it's like a huge band, because we have a singer who's a folk singer, a guy called Matthias, he's a really good like traditional folk singer, but he has this very emotional but also strong voice. Who does really cool things with this material. And we also have a guy who growls, who's my childhood friend from up north in Skellefteå. And we all live in different towns, except for some of us, me and Totte and Daniel Beckman, who's the keyboardist and he's also producer. And Maria, who plays the fiddle. We live in the same town. And then Erik, who's the guitarist and who's sort of my main songwriting collaborator, lives in Gävle, and there also lives the bagpiper. So, and there's, these are all different towns, which is like, between 100 and 600 kilometers apart. So to actually meet and play a gig, we would first have to like get everyone together, and we would have to rehearse, and then we'd have to get a gig. So, and the problem with that, of course, is that some of these people are professional musicians who do this for a living, right? So who doesn't have a day job, and so there would sort of need to be money involved to get to do a gig somehow. Yeah. So far, we have not been able to to do that, but we have this. We have actually an idea and a plan to do this live somehow, and we want to do it like, if we're doing this as a live concert, because we started this as a studio project basically. Like, this was something that we do because this music needs to be done somehow and it has to be out there. And we had no idea about playing live first. But then every time we've done something with this, when we done a recording and sort of get together, a few of us, and started to talk about it, and when we had Zoom meetings and stuff like that, we always say like, so when are we doing this live? This have to be a live show somehow. So we have an idea for it, to do a sort of, and then when we do it, it needs to sort of be spectacular somehow, right? So we have a pretty cool idea of a huge thing next year, hopefully, if we can get the funding for it and everything. But that might be the big sort of live premiere. But we'll see. I mean, we also need to get people there, and people have to be allowed to come because of the situation and everything. And then you never know. I mean, as I said, the people are we're not like 17-year-old guys who can just ditch our jobs and go on a European tour in a van for a few months. We have to. Yeah, I would love to play with this live as much as possible, but it has to be sort of on the right conditions, but perhaps we'll do sort of a live version of the band somehow, so we can do certain festivals and stuff like that in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, cool.
I do miss to play that. Sorry, I do miss to play live. I'm really longing to do that again.
Yeah, I think especially with so many musicians, like, it would definitely benefit from seeing it on stage, all at once, or something to that.
Yeah, it could be. I think it could be a really cool experience. And so for this thing you're planning, we're also working with or in contact with two different visual artists who sort of want to be involved and do scenery and these sort of visuals and stuff like that. So to make it sort of a whole thing, like an audiovisual performance thing.
Yeah, cool. With the writing, is it yourself and Eric sort of, are you like the puppet masters? You're like, okay, you play this, or is your fiddle player going, oh, I'm going to try this sort of sound over the top and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess both. We've been, so me and Eric, and I guess, we've been sort of working out the main bodies of the songs. So we have this idea of a tune or a story or something that we want to do, and we put together the main, the main frame of the song, and then we would go like, okay, so here would be perfect with some fiddle, or this would be nice with sort of a soundscape or anything like that. And then it's a bit different, depending on which musician or sort of what kind of ideas they have. So with like with Totte, who the hurdy-gurdy guy, or he's actually a lutenist. He says that he started playing the hurdy-gurdy because it wouldn't let him be. He says that he's not really a hurdy-gurdy player, but it's just something he uses sort of to make music. But he will so he will just get out and do weird stuff with the music. So on the next song we're releasing hopefully soon, there's a whole thing with. So the story of that song is a really cool medieval ballad about basically shipwrecked cannibal pirates, a story from the Middle Ages, and he just hatched onto that and made this whole sort of soundscape with the hurdy-gurdy and with wind and with water, and you can hear all the ships creaking and everything. But then for some other parts we will have like a really clear idea, like, okay, so I want the growl to be like this, and then I will do a very bad mock-up of it. I will try to growl as good as I can, and I'll send it to Andreas, who will sort of copy it in his strong sort of voice. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So it's different. Yeah.
And what's the recording setup? I've seen footage of two fiddle players in this beautiful looking studio, but I'm guessing everyone's recording in different spots. Yeah, are you putting it all together? How does that work?
Yeah, so it works like, so all the sort of skeletons of the songs, or the arrangement, is done like in our home studios, in mine and Eric's usually, and then everyone records usually in their own spaces. So the thing you saw was actually from, I'm so fortunate to work at the local university, where we have a music production department, where I get to work without actually I'm not like a super music producer or anything. I'm not like a sound engineer kind of guy. I'm more of a I guess music academic. I do music research and stuff like that, but I get to work there, and it's amazing. And we have this huge studio, and there's lots of equipment that we can borrow for our own like artistic projects. So that's an amazing asset to be. I can just book that studio and do some when there's room and time and everything. And during the summer, nothing happened there, so we could do some recordings. And then other people will record in their own home studios and everything. So we just make it up as we go along, I guess. I want to work with like lots of different musicians, so I'm planning on involving my dear friend and music partner for like all since we went to high school, Daniel Pettersson, who's an amazing key fiddle player. We've been sort of following each other for half our lives, and I want to record with him, but he doesn't have a studio set up, and he lives 600 kilometers from here. So I'm planning to go there hopefully this fall and do some recordings with him for this project also. Yeah.
Cool. So you're talking about another single and possible shows next year. What else is coming up for you guys? Like, have you got an EP or a long play plan? What's the go?
Yeah, we'll see. So the actual plan is that we're doing this. We have like six songs or something like that prepared, and some others that we are sort of planning. And we have this idea of because we didn't. So none of us have time to go into the studio for a month and work like with a whole record. So we need to sort of do this as a sort of side project that we do. So many late nights and everything like that. So we're releasing these tunes during this year. I guess every other month is the idea that we will to release a single. So at the end of the year, I think we'll have these 5 or 6 songs released, and I would like to sort of gather them and do I think because they're kind of long songs, all of them also, so I think it probably will be an album sooner or later. I would like to get that sort of released from a record label than to get the physical release of it, because now we're releasing them digitally. And perhaps also rework some things and do a few more tunes and then get an album going. So that's sort of the plan, but we doesn't have it. It's not an official plan yet. Yeah, but I think this needs to be an album, and it needs to be a vinyl. I'm so happy that vinyls are back finally.
Yeah, me too.
And I have so far not released a vinyl actually, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Yeah. Cool. Well, look, Daniel, thanks heaps for your time. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing an album of this stuff. It sounds really great, what I've heard. So yeah, it'll be great to hear it for longer. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry that we don't have any more music yet. We're working on the next track. Adam, our singer had some unfortunate issues in the kitchen. He got like a burn. He got burned in the kitchen from an oil pan that flew up. So he's been sort of recovering, and we're waiting to do the last bits of that song, and it will hopefully come out at least in a month or something like that. It's the idea. And then you get to hear about the cannibal pirates of the medieval times.
Beautiful. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Thanks a lot, man. Cheers.
Yeah.